tasked with assembling an elite team to travel through time. All your worlds are about to change.
Hey guys, Nick here. Welcome back to another Legend of Tomorrow episode review. My thoughts on tonight's episode of Legend of Tomorrow titled Progeny. And this episode, it was kind of another filler episode, but there was enough there that kind of kept me interested. I mean, in all honesty, this review is probably going to be super short. But that's not necessarily not gonna, but this episode, it was just really cut and dry for me. I mean, we see the team going after Vandal Savage in the future, which I thought was a cool thing to do, because the whole thing is like, oh, stop him in the past. We gotta stop him in the past. We gotta stop him in the 70s. We gotta stop him in the 80s. We gotta stop him in the 50s. Like, they're going all these past times, and now we finally see them go to the future, where they do see, the implications of some of these characters. We do see that, Ray's atom technology and his company is used eventually to help Vandal Savage take over the world. As well as seeing Ray dealing with what he thought was his relatives, his long-distance relative in the future. And then by the end of the episode, we ultimately find out that it was his twin brother's long-distance relative. Which is weird, because it's like, really, you're really gonna do that kind of cop-out where it's like, oh, he just happens to have a twin brother that we've never mentioned before. It's like, really? Like, TV shows have done that kind of thing before. Like, I remember, some episode of Futurama, they did that similar thing where Fry thought his brother did all this stuff, and it was his brother's son or whatever. Anyways, that's unrelated. But I just thought that was a bit of a cop-out. But it was cool seeing, Ray struggle with that, and the realization, I have a kid and I didn't know about it and all this stuff. But again, they copped out by saying, it's just that's not your relative. I mean, it is your relative, but it's not like your great-great-granddaughter or whatever, so you don't have to worry about having the kid. But I just didn't like the cop out of he happens to have a twin brother. But I gotta say, that last fight, it was, I love the action sequences in this show, and I feel like that's one of the things that, lost me in, the middle of the season, because it's you weren't really doing anything, really. Everyone was kind of, waiting around, in disguise, or, waiting around, in the ship, and there wasn't really a whole lot going on at the time, so that was just, as much as I enjoyed this episode a lot, but that was just kind of, one of the couple of things that kind of bothered me, so, I don't know, that was really the only thing that really bothered me. But with that being said, and one of the things I liked about this episode was, even though that whole cop-out thing I didn't care for, I did like seeing how, again, that initial revelation of Ray thinking he had a kid, and seeing how that affected his relationship with Kendra. And throughout the entire episode, we see her having flashbacks with Carter in a couple of their previous lives ago, when they were, it was the 1920s, and they show, a young oldest boardman, and just showing their life and how they have to change their names yet again, just so Vandal Savage doesn't find them. And I thought it was cool seeing the guy who plays Carter again, because it was really a letdown that they killed him off in the second episode. I mean, it was ballsy. I mean, he's a reincarnated character, so if they really wanted to, they could bring him back in some capacity. I wish it was more than a flashback, but I like seeing it back nonetheless, because for whatever reason, the actor kind of grew on me, even though he's not a thespian, he's not the greatest actor. But I got used to the idea of him being Hawkman, kind of similar to who Hawkman was in Smallville. Obviously a younger version, but he's still very much that same kind of character. So seeing that I thought that was pretty cool. And seeing the team finally, they're all, Rip especially, they're all wondering, do we kill this kid? Do we kill Progeny? And Progeny, he's a mildly known comic book character. He's kind of a dictator, and he has a history with the Justice Society. And I think the Justice League, he's a very old comic book character. And seeing that, everyone in the team is really hesitant on killing a kid, except for, Captain Cold, of course. So we see, everyone's dealing with, do we kill this kid? What do we do? Is it morally right to do to this kid what Vandal Savage did to Rip and his wife and kid? So that was kind of the whole thing in the episode. I mean, ultimately we see Rip almost doing it. And it seems like every time they really try to change history in the show, they make no dent whatsoever. Like, they really don't. At the end of the day, like, everything's still happening the way it's supposed to happen. But it's funny, because this show is dealing with time travel all the time. But in The Flash, whenever we see Barry go back in time, literally he changes, like, so much stuff. Like, in one of the most recent episodes of The Flash, he went back, like, a year, and he changed one of the episodes from last year. So, one of those episodes isn't technically canon anymore. So, time travel, I don't know, it's weird because, like Flash can affect time travel, but at the end of the day, like, this whole team of time travelers, like, they aren't really affecting the time stream. That's where it's like, okay, I guess. I mean, granted, you could say that, like they push things forward by the way they affected the time stream in this episode. By the end of it, when we see young, Progeny, killing his dad in his sleep, and seeing Vandal Savage is like, the seeds have officially been planted for him in his rise to power. We do see, like, the implications of that, but at the same time, I feel like it's not as impactful as I would have thought it would be, considering this is such a time travel heavy show. But you know what? One of my favorite things about this episode, and it wasn't even like a major part of it, was the whole scene between Mick and Snart, because I feel like that's one of the best dynamics of this show, because it's a very complicated relationship. Because we have Mick, who's very, like, no pun intended, he's very hot-headed, very tempered, he's very angry, very vengeful. And we have Snart, who, again, no pun intended, he's very cold, calculating, like, he thinks before he acts, like, he, very stern, like, he knows what he thinks about what he says before he says it. Like, they're really the complete opposite of each other, but yet they've had this bond since they were younger that has always stuck. And even when we find out, like, last episode that, Mick was Kronos and he was after the team, and we see him in this episode, like, he was like ready to kill Snart up until that point where he snaps back and he's back to normal. And that's where I think, like, this character, like, he is a little cheesy, but I also think he's really layered as well, because we see him and at his most angry, but I feel like when he's more calm and collected, that's where I think Dominic Purcell, or the actor who plays Heatwave, that's where he's able to do more with the character, because they're showing that there is more to the character than just the hothead. And it's seeing that snap to where like he's kind of back to normal. That's the thing about this character, like, you really don't know what day he's gonna snap back to wanting to kill everyone, because that's just who Heatwave is in this universe. So I thought that was pretty cool, and honestly, like, I didn't think that either of them were gonna die, especially after they did the whole, like, maybe Mick's dead, maybe he's not. Well, like, after they did that whole thing, I doubt they're gonna kill either of these two characters. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they killed one of them, but still, I feel like at the end of the day, like, the only person they would really kill is Captain Cold, and really, I feel like they'd only do it for shock value, just because these shows tend to kill off characters for shock value, much like Arrow did last night with a certain one of their characters, which I'm not going to mention. Anyways, so with that being said, honestly, like, again, pretty cut and dry episode. I mean, there's some interesting stuff going on. I'm more looking forward to next week's episode, which I believe is the episode where they go back to the West and we finally meet this universe's version of Jonah Hex. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we're closing in on the last, like, number of episodes, and this season's kind of slowly starting to pick up. And this show, while it's necessarily not, like, as good as The Flash's first season was, or as good as Arrow's first season was, it's kept my interest. And despite its slow episodes, it's definitely not the best show, but there's enough there that keeps me interested week after week. And it's not, again, it's not a bad show. Not the best, but you know what? Again, I'm still watching, so that's gotta mean something, right? So with that being said, that's gonna be it for me. So if you guys like what you see here, go ahead and subscribe below. I do review a bunch of the superhero shows that are on right now. I review Supergirl on Mondays, Flash on Tuesdays, Legends of Tomorrow on Thursdays, and kind of, I brought up Arrow a second ago. Because of what happened in last night's episode of Arrow, and the way that the show has really gone downhill in the last couple of seasons, and for a couple of other reasons, I've given up on that show. I won't be talking about or reviewing that show anymore. So if you guys watch my channel and don't see any more Arrow videos, you'll know why. So again, that's going to be it for me. So until next time, guys, have a good one.